Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third episode of the GymInformer podcast. I'm Chris Gilbert, your host for this episode, and my guest today is Brent Laffey, who is the owner of Carbon Performance and Carbon Culture Gyms in Franklin, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. Before we get started talking to Brent about his awesome gyms, we're going to take a little pause, and I'll show you some photos that I took from those gyms, so you get a better idea of what it is we're talking about. Brent, your gyms are really cool. But I'm assuming from talking to some people when I was there that you didn't really start out with that giant gym that is Carbon Performance now. So could you kind of take us through a little bit of the evolution of how the gym came about or how the gyms came about?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it started off as a passion project. I'm in this space on a different side. I previously owned a manufacturing company for sports supplements. So we do kind of all the R&D, flavoring, manufacturing on the sports nutrition side. So kind of the brand, notable brands that out there. And so I've always been in the space. Just have been kind of a gym connoisseur. I'd have 4, 5, 6 gym memberships, whether I lives in Chicago, London, or Nashville. And I
Nice.
finally got to a point where selfishly wanted my own kind of environment. And there were some good gyms here that I belonged to. And actually, ironically enough, the first gym I ever belonged to was Franklin Athletic Club, which we ended up taking over long term. But yeah, bounced around to different gyms. And finally, we had sold. I did the first kind of sale of my nutrition supplement manufacturing company, and decided to kind of build a small little space that it really was not a business plan. It was more, I'm going to create what I think would be a nice small gym with the best equipment and the environment I wanted, the lighting, the flooring, the aesthetics, and all that, which was kind of a hybrid model between historically, you'd say a hardcore gym. You think of kind of a dungeon where you might have to get a tetanus shot afterwards. And then I didn't really like that, but you love all the
Yeah.
equipment and kind of the vibe that was in there. I wanted that, but with a newer kind of, higher end atmosphere. And I think what you do is by equipment, you bring in the people who are obviously you'd consider hardcore or kind of more veterans. And then we kind of built out the look that was kind of like almost like a high end hotel, I guess it was kind of what we were trying to go with. And yeah, we did it in 4,000 square feet. And honestly, the goal was let's get some personal trainers, let's open it up to a certain cap, uh, you know, basically cover our cost and have the gym I want to lift in. And we did that in 2000, started in 2019, the build out, and opened in February 1st of 2020. And because of the connections on the supplement side, we had a kind of a big grand opening where if you saw it on social media, you probably thought we were opening a 50,000 square foot, gym. We had Chris Bumstead, we had Brandon Curry, we had John Meadows, we had the Bomars, we had Amanda Latone. I mean, just a bunch of different
Oh yeah. Wow.
Steve Kuklo. And so what I'm getting at is we got just a huge feedback from the look of the gym, which was a small space, but you couldn't tell, on social media. So people were loving the look of it, the kind of the vibe. And we kind of blew up almost more on social and like nationally than we did locally. So all of a sudden I'm like kind of thinking maybe this is something actually, right? So then it kind of evolved from there. So then we bought next door, which was a CrossFit, and then we had 8,000 square feet. And because we obviously wanted more space, we got kind of a good influx of new members right out of the gate. Didn't want to have too crowded of a gym. And then we expanded to Murfreesboro, which was another 8,000 square foot gym. And I was going kind of the route of 8,000 square feet because I kind of just wanted to control costs and variables and not go,
Mhm.
this wasn't really a business thing per se. But then when I started kind of thinking about what we were doing and looking at business models and seeing the market, I realized, okay, there's a lot of untouched revenue by not having enough space. So that's when we had the ability to take over Franklin Athletic Club in 32,000 square feet, which now is kind of, we finally have zoned in on kind of what I think our floor plans are going to be in the future. We have another gym opening first half of 2024, and it'll be very similar to Franklin. So it'll be called Carbon Performance, and it'll be 30 some thousand square feet, and very similar to that. So
Oh, wow.
it evolved. It started at 4, went to 8, 8 went to
Yeah.
32, and now we think that in 32, if anywhere from 28 to 40,000 square feet, we can put everything in there that we need to make it kind of a full wide range gym offering.
Nice. So when I was at the first gym back in December, that was already at the 8,000 square feet.
They're right. They're very close to each other. Obviously, the
Yeah, I
smaller
was at
ones.
Murfreesboro too, and I was at all three gyms. Now, are you still a
Yep.
partner in Murfreesboro?
We sold. Basically, it's almost more like a franchise in a sense. We sold it to the Yates, who are local,
Yeah,
and
I met Tracy.
it was the right decision. I thought I was going to be there a lot more, and very quickly realized I was not going to be. And we wanted some of the local presence. They wanted this thing, so we obviously sold it to them. They've done a great thing, and I probably will not go back to the 8,000 square foot, or I think they're 7,500 square feet model. That's just it works for them, but we're kind of marching forward, and everything will be between, like I said, 28 and 40,000 square feet.
Yeah, the big gym it's something to behold.
Yeah.
Like I walked in there, I'm like, this is a gym you can mess some stuff up in.
Yeah, there's a lot of options,
Oh yeah,
and there's a lot of different services too. What we don't want to be is just strength training, right? We have a company in there called Relive, which is a med spa. Has we can do blood panels, hormone therapy, has aesthetics, IVs, Botox, laser hair removal. You can do tattoo removal. You can do all this stuff, right? So that's a little portion, right? Then we have that's like 2,000 square feet, but it's a med spa setup. It's in the gym, but separate. Then we have an area that is called Carbon Edge, which is kind of looks like a college weight room, which is a combination of youth performance, so kind of bigger, faster, stronger, and then adult strength classes. So we start 6:30 in the morning, 7:45, 9, 12, and anywhere from, you want 10 to 20 members, kind of that small boot camp area. Then we're going to have a barber in there. We have another classroom in there. We have a full cafe now too. So it allows us to do all these things to kind of make it a one-stop shop. We want it, to be where you come in, you get your supplementation, you get some things done at Relive, you can have your kid there, you can, there's so many different things that check the box to why you would want to just be a sole member of Carbon Performance.
yeah, that's awesome. One of the things I was super impressed with when I was at the Carbon Performance Gym, what, as you already mentioned, just the equipment. I mean, the entire gym is Arsenal Prime. You probably have more Prime equipment than almost any other gym I've been to. And I know, in talking to quite a few different gym owners, that Prime is not easy to come by. So I was super impressed with the amount of it that you have in there.
Yep.
I'm assuming you, being in Tennessee and the fact that Arsenal is based in Tennessee, I kind of expected to see a decent amount of that in a big gym. But you do have a lot of it.
Yeah.
So I was impressed by the equipment variety, and just curious, like what made you? I mean, Arsenal seems like a logical choice. Tennessee, it's a great
Mhm.
manufacturer. What made you go with like Prime as the secondary manufacturer for the equipment you put in there versus like Rogers or Atlantis, or was that an active choice? Or
Yeah, those are all great companies too. You hit it on the head, right? Even Rogers and Atlantis, we have some pieces in there, and yeah, I think if you had to pick two, right, only, I'd pick Arsenal and I'd pick Prime, and the reason being is I think they both offer different kind of delivery systems. I mean, obviously Arsenal really great on the leg area, on the leg stuff, right? Big, heavy machines, good adjustability, all that, and then Prime, obviously, that which used to be what Strive, I think.
yeah,
They have different loading areas, which is great. So resistance from the top, the top. the middle, the bottom. So I mean, obviously, like especially on chest and back, a lot of times, machines are heavy out of the gate, and then they kind of, very quickly the resistance goes away. So I mean, Prime gives you an ability to really, make kind of those top sets on things harder, make the middle harder. So love that range. But it's hard because you want so much different equipment. So right now, actually today, we were finalizing our equipment list for West Nashville. It's like the hardest and funnest part of the job, right? Like why I wanted to do the gym is make sure that equipment first, right? Everything else is secondary.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's what matters. And it's hard. Eventually you have to make some cuts. But I mean, the West Nashville is fun, man. We're even going bigger and better than we did in the one you were at.
Yeah.
And, it's Arsenal, it's Prime, pretty good amount of Panada, pretty good amount of Atlantis, some hoist and hammer. And I think the goal for us in this one is to even separate ourselves even more is because we're doing the floor plan, it's going to be very easy where we have almost long rows of what that body part is. So kind of a chest row, a back row, a shoulder row, an arm row. And what we want is to have different manufacturers. So if you take a look at like incline, we'll have a Prime incline, probably have a hammer, and probably have an Arsenal. And we really need to show the education on why you would use these differently, right? Where it hits, how you would use these, why you would rotate these. But like you'll have an option when you go over to incline. Usually you have one incline machine, right? Well, you're going to
Yeah.
have three. You're going to have Arsenal, Prime or Hammer, and make that choice. Same thing with like low row, three different manufacturers. High row, three different manufacturers.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
it's gonna, and they all kind of hit from different points, and they have different loading mechanisms. So I think it's worth having different pieces, right? If you take a
Yeah.
look at like
Yeah. It's
a leg extension, if you find a really good leg extension, I don't think you need as much variety because it's kind of a one singular movement, right? So there's
right.
different machines, and this one's gonna be fun, man. The layout's gonna be huge. We're gonna have probably I think like 13 or 14 different chess pieces in a row. And that's not
Oh,
including,
wow.
flat presses and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's just
Just
different
machine.
accelerate. Yeah, so this one's been fun, but the hardest part is that you get your wish list and then it's I mean, of course there's a budget piece to it, but there's also more of a space to it, right?
Yeah. Completely.
You can only get so much stuff. So yeah, we kind of had to make some cuts today and make the final decisions, but it was pretty exciting. And my big thing is like people would be like, "Oh my God, you spend too much on equipment." Um, to me, that's kind of an easy expense because you're really probably going to do that one time. Yeah, you have to make some maintenance, and there may be a piece or two you replace. But if you look at a lease, it's 10 years, and you look at how much you spend on equipment. Say you spend 750,000 or whatever it may be, and you advertise it over 10 years. It's really not that big of a cost. You're spending a lot more money on other things. So to
Yeah.
me, it's easier to justify the big spend on equipment than it is on some other things.
Yeah. And if you buy that really good quality equipment, it's gonna last you like the life of the gym.
Yeah, you sure hope so. Or you got to find a new manufacturer, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely.
So
Because we love old school gyms, and we've been to a lot of gyms that are old school, and all of that old stuff is still holding up and still working great. So as long as you
I
maintain,
know, yeah. There's some pieces, man, too. You can't replicate, right? So
no, you just
we're
can't.
on the we're on the look for about 4 or 5 pieces of used equipment that we want for that gym that's not made new now, right? Like if you could find a Nautilus pullover, hit me up. I'd buy that in a second.
Oh, the
There's
old
certain
change
things like
driven
that.
ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
the old change driven one. I've probably used 3 or 4 of them throughout my travels. And granted, I've
Yep.
been to 150 gyms in the last 18 months, but and I probably used 4 of them. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, no, exactly.
yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about, I was really impressed with the atmosphere of the gym. Like, I think so many, don't get me wrong, I think gym owners are doing the best that they can and the best with the knowledge that they have and trying to make the best atmosphere for their gyms. I think you really did an amazing job with artwork and adding that extra element to the gym that you walk in, you're like, this is a badass place.
Yeah,
And just from the look of it, everything's blacked out and you got artwork up, like you got like murals on the wall, but nothing like cheesy. It's
yeah.
really like well done. Was that something like that you came up with? Did you hire a company to do that? Like how did that come about? Because it was really well done.
No, I appreciate that. Those are the comments you obviously love, right? Because you want to create something that an environment more than anything, right? And our original name was Carbon Culture, and there's
Right.
reasons why we switched that. But to me, like I always was like corny is like, the old expression about Cheers, like where everybody knows your name. And like that's what I want at a gym. Like you want to come in and it's be around the people that you think like you have appreciation for, you support, you respect, and that's luckily, knock on wood, man, we have been very fortunate that I don't know if it's by the way that, our employees conduct themselves or what, but like we've got the right members who it's wild is like you'll get like people who will come in and they'll look at certain people and be like, oh my God, I don't want to be around these bodybuilders. Well, they give it a go and then they realize like they're some of the most supportive and best people to push. And then every day they want to come there and kind of one up the next day. So it's kind of been that in a
Absolutely.
sense. And yeah, how we picked some of the choices is my wife's been pretty much instrumental on the brand of Carbon and
Hmm.
like she's done a great job. I kind of had a high level of like, here's what I want, right? And I'm kind of in a guy's approach, like the
Yeah.
30,000 view. Okay, now can you go make this happen, right? And all that stuff she takes very serious. And like even the quotes and stuff, I find quotes and motivation pretty freaking cheesy. So we're very particular. Like we got like 40 quotes, and I had a bunch of our members and friends kind of look at them and like, what is meaningful, right? And like the two that we came up with, one of them being is trust the process. That could mean freaking anything, right? It could
Right.
mean, you know, your business. It could mean your journey on your prep. It could mean whatever. So I think it's like we take things pretty serious in the sense of like some of these quotes you hear are just like kind of like make you want to gag a little bit. So we took that very serious. And then honestly, the look of the gym, we want everything to be authentic. And we're going through this phase where we're going to grow. We're going to do 3 or 4 in Nashville and then pick a couple other markets. And if a couple other markets, well, is kind of make go nationwide with this. And probably my biggest thing that we have a partnering group that we're doing this with is don't lose your authenticity. I think if you do that, you lose the brand. And now
Oh,
more than ever, I think the younger generations want to be identified with a brand than anything else, right? And so how do you do that? Well, it's not easy when you scale it, but I think one thing is you have staples of your gym that are kind of the DNA, but every area you go to have some authenticity to that local area, right? So we kind of know what things we will have in each one, and then where there'll be some improvising on the murals that could be more local or could be have its own flair, so that like you go to no offense, I shouldn't say this, but if you know you're going to go to an LA Fitness, whether you're in Boston or you're in LA, it's the same damn thing.
yeah.
So it kind of becomes boring. And that's what they wanted was, oh, you know what you're going to get. Well, you know what you're going to get at Carbon. You're going to get this equipment, this look, but we're going to have a different flair so that if you visit, a different location, it has something different to it. So our West Nashville location is going to be very different to our Franklin one. Our Franklin is an old movie theater, right? That they created into a gym, and then we took it and put it into Carbon Performance.
Hmm.
The West Nashville is an old railway that they used to put
Oh,
lumber
nice.
in. So
Yeah.
we're going to have a little bit of a play on that, and it's going to have floor to ceiling glass with like kind of old rusty beams, and like it kept some of its kind of flair, but in a new modern look. So that's
Oh,
exciting. We're not trying to make the same box in every location. And I think people will appreciate that. And like people will choose, what we want is someone to have a membership in Franklin and want to visit all the different gyms because they have a different flair, a different kind of thing about them versus going to the same one every day. So you can let us know how we do on that over the next couple of years.
oh yeah. That's one of the things. One of the reasons we started doing this was we love locally owned gyms and the different atmospheres and the flair, and everyone you go to
Yep,
is different. And like you said, the whole
100%.
Cheers thing, like I was impressed, like how friendly people were in the gym, and you can tell
Yeah.
when the owners of the gym are involved in the gym. Like just people, if you walk in a gym and nobody knows who the owner is or nobody's ever seen the owner, like it's
Yep.
generally got a different vibe than if the owner is like active. If the people who
100%.
work the front desk know who the owner is, you walk in, you go, "Yeah, I talked to Brent." And they're like, "Oh, Brent's great." Then you know that's a
Yep.
whole different vibe than like who, like who's Brent?
Yeah.
I've been to
Yeah.
gyms like that, and they don't know who the owner is. They've never seen him, and it's just hands off, and it just
Yep.
automatically gives you that idea, like okay, what am I going to get into here?
100%.
But
Well, I think too is like, that's a great point. Like what we want though is like if we scale this thing, obviously, I or who my wife can't be at every gym, right? But what do you do? Well, you need to give some autonomy and maybe it does include down the road, some equity to the key people, right? The GM, so that like they're the face and they're that person that represents that gym. And we are so damn lucky that like in our gym, we're a couple deep in Franklin where, I'm there, of course, but then we have a GM and then we have a GM that's in training, or this dude knows literally you could walk in and we have, a few thousand members. He knows 80% of the people's names. And I'm just like, I'm blown away by that. Right. So
yeah, that's
it's,
super awesome.
it can start from the top, but definitely, you got to have that people right below that are acting like they own it too. And we do. And I feel very lucky to walk in there a lot of days. And, it's like almost kind of everybody is an owner operator.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, so you kind of, that's where I was going next was what was the next steps, and we kind of already covered all of that.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't want to talk about this a lot, because I didn't want our entire podcast to be about Brandon. But you did mention that Brandon is a partner with you guys. How is that? Like, how is it working with, you know, Mr. Olympia at one point in
Mhm.
time, and Mr. like fourth place this year, did a great job. I mean, that's got to be
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Very cool. That's the reason why we went to Murfreesboro. Felt like the guy deserved a gym in his own town, right? And
Yeah,
um, Brandon's it's interesting. It's like anyone who knows him knows this is not like blowing smoke, but he's honestly the most like least ego you've ever seen in someone, and probably the most easygoing guy to the point where sometimes like he'll take pictures with every freaking person in there, even if he's working out. You almost have to like defend him for himself. But he's a pleasure. You know, I wish he gives a great name for the bodybuilding as a sport. He's a legit awesome guy, great family guy. His wife is instrumental. They have 4 kids that are super active, and she lets him do his thing, and they're a great team. And it's great that whatever involvement they have in the gym, they represent it well. So it's kind of a blessing, right? And we've been very lucky as Brandon obviously has equity in the gym, but we've had a lot of good partners, and we've been able to navigate and find the right people to be affiliates. We've done quite a few events. In the beginning, it was like we had a guy named John Meadows who was great, came here multiple times.
oh yeah, everybody
He
knows John
obviously
Meadows.
he obviously has passed away, but he was just a great person to be around the gym. We've had Chris Bumstead events, which are absolutely next level
Yeah,
crazy. Um, and they're just all good representatives to the gym. So we try to obviously affiliate with like-minded people and people who are more than just, I would say bodybuilders, right? And Brandon and John and Chris
yeah,
have much more than just kind of your meatball bodybuilder, right?
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, like when I
So
went to Murfreesboro, like Tracy was like, I met Tracy, and she's like, I wish I knew you were coming. Like I would have called Brandon, and he would have been here. So I mean,
100%.
that speaks. You know,
100. He's the easiest. If he's in town and like I have, with the supplement company or the manufacturing company, I'd have guests in town. It might be another brand, like it could be a different brand, right? But it's a couple bodybuilders, and I'm like, hey, they're going to be in town, and I call him that morning. I'm like, can you come by at 5? And it's a 40-minute drive. He'll be there. No, never asking for anything. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about Brandon. He
that's awesome.
when we got to know him, I kind of had a good feeling, character, but man, his character is even better behind closed doors than it is on camera. So, yeah, it's been fun getting to know them.
Yeah, we actually feel honored that you like with all of those partnerships and all those people that you rub shoulders with on a regular basis that you were willing to come on our little podcast here. Hopefully, at one point it will be a little more than a little podcast, but we appreciate
Yeah,
you
I think
coming on.
dude, you're doing something very cool that not many people are doing. So I think
I don't I don't
if you
know
keep
that anyone
going,
else is doing what we're doing, so we're
yeah,
trying to get the word out the best we can about all these amazing locally owned gyms, and that if you want to get in shape and you want to like change your life, you don't have to go to one of those big box gyms that is the
yeah,
same every time you go. Like get some
hmm
personality and like find a place that really fits you, and that's what we're trying to help people do.
no, that's
So
awesome.
hopefully that the word gets out a little bit more often and grows a little bit more. But before we go, is there one of the things I like to ask at the end is there any advice that you have, having gone through your process and your growth, for other gym owners?
Yeah, it's definitely different. People ask me that all the time, and I think it's two things. Is I was fortunate enough to start the gym when it wasn't my like sole income, and I wasn't honestly looking to make a business out of it. So I can't give perfect advice because a lot of people are going into this with some risk, right? And mine was
Mhm.
a calculated risk, and it was still a risk, but I kind of said, hey, if this thing bellies up, I lose X, am I good? And I was, right? I honestly think that helped me because I did not make shortcut decisions, and probably sometimes, was playing the longer term, and it ended up turning into a business because of passion and not having to cut corners. So my thing would be that definitely you got to have the passion. People see it, it shows in your gym. But two, like, just make sure you're in a spot where you can do it. It's not a 1 year thing. And I think I've seen so many gym owners go, okay, hey, I got this much, funds, this much capital, by year one, I have to be here or else they're in trouble, right?
Right.
That's never a good plan because you don't know, it's your first gym, it's a new area. Like, you have to have enough, I think, funds to be, thinking long term and make sure you're comfortable, because otherwise you'll start making decisions that aren't best for your gym because of, constraints, and that's just not a spot you want to be in, right? So
Yeah,
for
totally.
sure, be an entrepreneur, take a chance. I'm not saying don't, but understand it's not going to happen in the first year. So many people literally go, oh, by year one I'll have 2,000 members and I can pay off these loans, and did it. It never happens as fast as you think it does.
Yeah.
So just make sure you're looking at a long-term play, not a 1 year play.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no
So,
problem.
I appreciate Brent coming on. This has been the Gym Informer podcast. Check us out.
Thank you very much.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more great content.